Again, welcome. My name is Daniel Meter. I work over in the Advisement Center here at Estrella Mountain Community College. And I'm going to do the welcome for our Black History Month kickoff. I'd like to start by asking who in here, does anybody know who started the official celebration or the idea of Black History Month?
I do.
Who?
Cut right?
That's a good one. I would say here at Estrella, I would go with that answer. Yes. Yes. Well, I'm talking nationally. Anybody know? All right. Well, we're going to learn today. We are a learning institution. All right. Does anybody know what year it started? Yes. 1926. Yes, you are right. Okay. All right. Welcome and thank you for joining us as we honor this year's National Black History Month theme. And the theme is A Century of Black History Commemorations. This is the 100th year of celebrating and recognizing Black History Month as an official holiday. Yeah, go ahead, clap that up. Today, we stand on the legacy of Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Okay, Dr. Carter G. Woodson is the original visionary behind having and the importance of having a Black History Month. The visionary scholar known as the father of Black history, he believed that a people denied their history were denied their power. In 1926, he established Negro History Week, not as a moment of nostalgia, right? Not to just sit around remembering the old times, right? But as a hold and an act of truth-telling, right? To tell the history as it actually happened, ensuring that the brilliance, radiance, and contributions of Black people could no longer be ignored or erased. So let me ask you, if you believe it, that history matters, say history matters. All right. Give me one more. If you believe in telling the truth, say tell the truth. All right. We're gonna go to church today. All right. As we approach the 250th anniversary of America celebrating its independence, did you guys know that's coming up in July? All right, we are called to ask whose stories define our democracy and whose voices are we still learning to hear from? In a time when access to history is being challenged in the classrooms and communities across this nation, this centennial reminds us that Black history is not separate from American history, it is essential to American history. And with that spirit of remembrance, resilience, and forward movement, it is my honor to welcome you to the EMCC 2026 Black History and Achievement Month. And now for an official welcome from our campus, I would like to introduce Ms. Lita Johnson, who is our Vice President of Business Affairs. Yes.
Administrative Services.
Change the title.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us here at our college. And I just appreciate that we're taking a moment from not only our work schedules, but your class schedule to take a moment to reflect, to learn something, to find your passion, to find your voice. So I just ask that you engage today. You take a moment and kind of move everything around off your mind and try to figure out, where's my voice? Where do I want to be? And how do I learn from what happened in the past? So welcome to Estrella Mountain. Thank you very much. And just know that there's a calendar of events. So keep watching for them. There's multiple events throughout the entire month to celebrate, to get an opportunity to celebrate with your colleagues and your classmates. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Lita. And we will cover the entire month's schedule of events at the end of today's session. Our next presenter or speaker that's up is Azoya Epperson. She is our BSU, our Black Student Union president, and she is a health sciences and nursing major. Azoya?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us as we kick off Black History Month here at Australian Mountain Community College. My name is Azoya Epperson, and I'm honored to serve as the new president of Black Student Union. I'll be honest, stepping into this role happened quickly, and I'm still learning the ropes. But Black leadership has never been about waiting until the moment feels perfect. It's about stepping up when the moment calls for it. This year's theme, A Century of Black History Commemorations, reminds us that for 100 years, Black history has been celebrated, remembered, and persevered, shaping how we see ourselves and how the world sees Black contributions. It's a theme that calls on all of us to honor the past while actively building the future. As your Black Student Union president, my goal is simple: to make sure every Black student feels supported, valued, and empowered on this campus. I want our community to have a space to celebrate our culture, share our voices, and feel empowered on this campus, and carry forward the legacy of those who come before us. Even though I'm still growing into this role, I'm committed to doing that work alongside all of you guys. Now, to bring on Nick, who's going to introduce our keynote speaker for today.
Good afternoon. Introducing the keynote speaker, Professor Duku Enoche, who is an associate professor of the Africana language, literature, and culture, director of New College International Initiatives, Office of Interdisciplinary Global Learning and Engagement, the past chair on the Conference of College Composition and Communication, and currently the chief reader for the College Board's Advanced Placement English and Composition. She was named 2021 Outstanding Speaker of the Year by Arizona Humanities. Her research focuses on African diaspora orality and literacy practices, folklore, storytelling, and oral history. Most recent research focuses on African diasporic women activists as community mothers. One of her many hats is an oral historian, storyteller, and documentarian. She has held 3 Fulbright Hays group projects abroad, taking 12 students and teachers from ASU and the Phoenix Unified High School District, introducing them to life, culture, and history in Ghana. She teaches a popular internship on human trafficking, which concludes in Ghana, working with a non-government organization, Challenging Heights. This is an organization that rescues children from enslavement on the Volta Lake. This year, she is directing a New College undergrad inquiry and research experience project, interviewing and telling the story of refugees in Arizona. In all her work, she focuses on understanding and embracing the many cultural experiences across the globe, believing that the more students can do work around civic and social activism, the more successful they will become as global citizens. Dr. D's research focuses on African diaspora orality and literacy practices, folklore, storytelling, oral history, and social justice. In her upcoming book, Black Women Rising, African-American Community Mother Activists of Phoenix, Dr. D investigates women activists as community mothers based on a Ghanaian deity, Nana Essie, who serves as an archetype in African diaspora women's literature and for women activists. Today, we will learn the rich history of African-American women in Arizona and place them in a larger context and tradition of Black women who serve as activists throughout the African diaspora. Introducing Professor.
I have. Can you all hear me? Yeah, I have a big mouth. So even if I didn't have a mic, so I'm a little, well, I'm really impressed and a little overwhelmed. I wasn't expecting such an audience. Give me a second, let's see if I can pull up. There we go. Okay. So I'd like to walk around, but I made notes, and if I don't make notes, you all will be here all day because I can talk. Because I told you I'm a storyteller, so but I'm very grateful to Lenny, to Najma, and the BSU, and all of you who've invited me. And you kind of put me on the spot, say, yeah, we were here before when so we're looking forward to, I was like, oh, Lord. So I'm gonna try. Oh, okay, I'm going to do my best. What you see here is the screen of who I call Community Mothers of Phoenix. But before I jump into that, let me give you a little background. Repeating some of what has already been said, in the 2026 Association for the Study of African American Life and History, at one point it was for Negro life and history, but now it's African American life and history. The theme, which you've already heard, for this year is a century of Black history commemorators or commemorations. I turned it into commemorators because that's us. We are all commemorating this phenomenal feat. So this marks a commemoration of Black history that Dr. Carter G, we say G, but it's good, you know, we like to say Dr. G, because, you know, it gives us another meaning also. But Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, George Cleveland Hall, William D. Hargrove, Jesse E. Moreland, Alexander Jackson, James E. Stamps. They came together and institutionalized the teaching, study, dissemination, and commemoration of Black history when they founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. We now refer to that organization as ASALH. And I have presented at ASALH a number of times, so you don't know, that's kind of like the pinnacle of many of the professors. It's, you know, to present at ASALH is a big deal, so, okay. And it was just in Atlanta this past September. It was an amazing experience, but we want to say that we are truly indebted to the work of these incredible men. But when I think of history, I think of his story. I think of her story. And I think of our story. So what I want to focus on today is her story, and specifically her story here in the Valley, because I think that this is significant. I should give you just a little background. When I first came to Arizona, yeah, I was born and raised in Michigan, Pontiac, Michigan. Okay. You know, that's where I was born and raised. So y'all know a little bit of the history of Detroit, especially involved in the civil rights and the labor movement and what happened. I moved from Detroit because I didn't think that was enough, and I moved to Washington, D.C. I don't know, at one point, they referred to Washington, D.C. as Chocolate City. And indeed it is and was. I'm painting a picture for you because I left Washington, D.C. and headed to New York City. So all of these experiences are saying, you know, I was a proud African-American woman, completely involved and engaged in civil rights, labor movement, and Black rights, and all of this stuff. That's what I was experiencing. I moved to Toledo same kind of, not quite like Detroit, but still very much involved in the history of African American people. Then I moved to Phoenix. And when I moved to Phoenix, I moved to Glendale, the only African American family for like 3 miles, square miles, right? I was like, okay, what am I doing here? Until my cousin, who had been living here for many years, took me to see the Kings of Comedy. I was like, where are these Black people come from? I was overwhelmed and excited because, you know, if I went into the Fry's, which was right around the corner, if I saw another Black person, we hugged. We were so happy to see one another. And you're like, where you get your hair? The important things. That is when it dawned on me. First of all, not only do I know anything about Phoenix or about Arizona, but I'm willing to bet most folks didn't. I tried to get my son to move. He said, no, ma, ain't no Black folks there. He's a lawyer, so he needed. Well, I was like, okay. So this is what set me out on doing what I call my pioneer research. I was investigating who were the movers and the shakers, who were the people who had contributed to the social and cultural fabric, the political fabric of the Phoenix metropolitan area in particular, and Arizona included. And believe me, I found a whole lot. So, as a part of the global African diaspora, this is a statement that continues in the executive summary. As part of the global African diaspora, people of African descent in the United States have viewed their role in history as critical to their own development and that of the world. Along with writing Black histories, antebellum Black scholars north of slavery started observing the milestones in the struggle of people of African descent to gain their freedom and equality. Revealing their connections to the diaspora, they commemorated the Haitian Revolution, the end of the slave trade, the end of slavery in Jamaica. They observed American emancipation as Watch Night, Jubilee Day, Juneteenth celebrations. Eventually, they vetted the lives of individual figures. This is what I want to do, okay? Who fought against slavery, most notably Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, but that was only in the beginning. The scholar Arthur A. Schomburg captured the motivation of Blacks to dig up their own history and present it to the world. So this is what I do. Okay, I dig up the history through oral history. I find people, so clearly they have to be alive. Okay, because I want to talk with them and I won't tell you about the times that I talked to ghosts, so we won't go into that right now. But oral historians identify and sit and talk with people who have made a difference. And so these women, some of them are, does this need to be open like this? I'm trying to see how, okay. So y'all recognize one of those people.
All right. Linda Pepper used to work here.
Okay, so these are the people, some of the people that I have done work with. I've done it with men also, but I thought today I wanted to share her story because, of course, that is our story. So, Schomburg says the American Negro must remake his past in order to make his future. I want you to remember that. Remake his past to make his future. And this is where my work comes in. I'd like to thank the work of some incredible women who helped shape the history of the Phoenix metropolitan area. So that's my task for today. Now, let me give you some more background. First, before I start talking about these women that I refer to as community mothers. Okay, let's start with the word archetype. Who knows what archetype? What's the archetype? What is it?
Like a trope?
Uh, but it's a little bit broader than a trope. Some of you, if you study literature, you may think of motifs, but this is archetype is specifically person related. An archetype is the fundamental human patterns of behavior that recur in dreams. Now, most of us, I won't say everybody, but most of us dream. And we often have dreams that recur. When I was a kid, I used to have this dream. I grew up in my grandparents' house, and they had, it was a big house. It was kind of a big white house on the hill. And my grandfather, he farmed and he sold turkeys and chickens. As a matter of fact, my grandfather taught Joe Louis how to raise turkeys. That's just a little side. So it was a big house, it was 3 floors, and the basement was really dark and scary. So I would have a dream periodically. I mean, throughout my life, I would go down in the basement, and you could go down, and there was a whole lot of little rooms. My grandfather built the house, and so, he just was like, I think I had this, let me put this here. So you could actually go down in the basement. I was raised, we had a coal furnace. Not a little pot belly, we had a big furnace that heated the whole house. So you have the furnace room, you have a place where they would dump the coal, and then there were other rooms, there was a washroom, it was a big, big space. And there was this one little dark room I never liked to go into. I don't know what my grandparents put in there, but it wasn't anything I wanted to see. But in my dream, I would imagine that there was this huge animal with these red eyes and horns, and it would chase me. And I was so afraid, and it would chase me and chase me. Well, there was another exit to the outside. You go up the steps and you go outside, and you're out in the big, bright sunshine. In this dream, that animal would chase me out of the house, up those stairs, and I'm so afraid. When I got outside and it was in the light, I turned and looked at it, I'm not afraid of it, and I would ride on its back. Now, I know there's some Freudian stuff going on there, but we won't examine it just now. But it was a dream I had over and over and over. You know when I stopped having the dream? Actually, it was when I met my husband. It was older than I was, okay? And in Ghanaian culture, we believe in, I'll call them totems, okay? So clans and individuals have totems. Well, also, they have totems related to your name. So my name is Equia, which means female born on Wednesday. So like my totem is goat. And they say, goats will eat anything. And goats are greedy. And so Anansi, the spider, is born on Wednesday. He's greedy, but he also smart. So I take it, You're very wise, you're very greedy, and your wisdom gets you out of the greed. Well, people born on Thursday, their totem is a wild boar. What's that what I was saying in my dream? Was a wild boar. My husband was chasing me when I was 4 years old. Okay, so when I got out and I saw the light and I saw it was just a wild boar, and I thought, all I need to do is ride on his back. And sure enough, when I met my husband, I stopped having that dream. One of my friends said, I've been chasing you all those years. Well, that's a type of archetype, right? It's a recurring human trait that you have in dreams, you find in literature, you find in myths. So it is something that's recurring. Now, I'll admit that when I'm referring to women archetypes, most of the archetypes for women are not nice. You know, you have the witch, you have the old hag, you have all these. Of course, you also have the princess. But then you go back to the wicked stepmother. You know, you have all these negative connotations. And in fact, I've been studying archetypes for many years, and it bothered me that even when I was studying Joseph Campbell or Carol Pearson, that they never acknowledged any kind of African archetypes. They say, oh, they may exist, but you know, we can just dismiss that, right? So that always aggravated me, and being the one that gets aggravated and then tries to find an answer, I started looking. So when I started reading a Black literary critic by the name of Carla Holloway, who introduced the concept of the African goddess, ancestress, things just kind of metaphorically opened for me, you know? It was this spiritual divine guide. This was an archetype that I could get acquainted with. So I began to recognize the truth of the theory. And even in fact, I realized that I had encountered just such a figure in my own studies in Ghana, West Africa. And her name was Nana Essie. Nana Essie was a Fanti woman. She helped to found the Akonade Shrine in Latte, Ghana. After her death in childbirth, she became deified. Okay, so now in Ghana, a woman without children is nothing. She's absolutely nothing, okay? Because she don't have, when she passes away, she didn't have anybody to remember her. So she's nothing. But in Nana Essie's case, because she had such an instrumental role in developing this particular shrine, she was mothering the people of the shrine. She was mothering the people of the village. She was mothering other people's children. And I was like, I think I'll call her a community mother. And so I look at these characteristics that were personified in her work, similar to Yemaja of Yoruba, Nigeria. She's a mother figure. She's sacred to pregnant women. She is a consultant in times of domestic upheaval. She helps barren women conceive children, and she is something known as an Ochime. An Ochime means that she's a spokesperson for those people who can't speak for themselves. Okay, so I put all that together and I started saying, I think I'll call her a community mother. And in fact, I found that these particular characteristics I can find in a lot of relevant feminist discussions of works such as Zora Neale Hurston's, where we learn that a woman's only defense and means of survival is dependent on her tongue. Now think about it. Think about some African American women. They can tear you up. They can signify with the best. They can talk some stuff. Okay. So the only defense, as far as Hurston was concerned, is that women had the law in their mouths. Nana Acey, as the spokesperson for the other deities and others, she clearly had the law in her mouth. In fact, she's the peacemaker amongst the deities and comes during times of strife to smooth the way. So think about these same African-American women I'm referring to with law in their mouth. They are frequently the peacemakers. Now they can stir up some stuff now, but they also know how to bring people together. And so this is my vision of a community mother. And I found that African American and Africana, I refer to Africana as in the same way that you would think of the diaspora, African women of African descent throughout the world. That's Africana, okay? And I find that many Africana women writers often have a character in their work that resembles the characteristics that I note in Nana Acey. Take, for example, Mama Day and Gloria Naylor's novel of the same title. Mama Day is a midwife. What she do? She brings children, okay? Mama Day is literally helping bring people into the world. Nearly every other inhabitant in the island that she lived, although she never married, she never had any children of her own. She served as the community's doctor, and she was also seeking peace. We won't go too far with that. Actually, as the years pass, I've discovered that not only is Nana Acey an archetype to be found in Africana women's literature, but also in their everyday lives, okay? Particularly women who are social activists. I've dubbed this, again, the Nana Acey community mother archetype, okay? And when you start reading literature by African-American women, see if you find somebody who resembles these characteristics. And certainly when I introduce you to these women here, you will see the parallels. The community mother really is not a new phenomenon. As early as the 1850s, whenever there were vibrant Black communities, Black women rose to leadership, rose through social activism. Frances Harper's Women's Club is a good example, where their founding ethic was community mothering. That's what they refer to it, referring to accepting the responsibility of children who may or may not be biologically related to the mothers. Okay, so that's an early definition. Thus, the Nana Acey community mother archetype, she takes responsibility. Today, there have been many examples of the community mother right here in Phoenix. Take, for example, Miss Betty Fairfax. Any of y'all go to Fairfax High School? Okay, not far from here, Betty Fairfax High School. Well, Miss Betty was a phenomenon. Miss Betty moved to Arizona in the 1950s, okay? And at that time, there wasn't a lot of work available, but she was able to get a job as, she was a phys ed teacher. Okay. Soon after, she moved to another school and then another school, and she ended up at Central High School, right there in Phoenix. And at Central High School, the parents didn't want anything to do with her. The teachers, the administration, I don't know how she even got the job. But I should also tell you that after many years of service, when she was 86 years old, she tried to retire. And they begged her to stay. They begged her to stay. She was so instrumental in so many young people's lives, helping them realize their dream. Okay? And so Miss Betty, I could go on and on about her, but just suffice it to say that when she retired, they built that school and they named it after her. So that's a tribute. She was a community. Incidentally, Miss Betty never had any children of her own. she mothered other people's children. Okay? She and her sister, Jean Fairfax, who you see up there pictured, began a fund in 1987 for graduates of Bethune Elementary, making a promise that if they graduated from high school, they would provide them with $1,000 a year for 4 years to go to college. That was more than enough to go to college at that time. Can't do anything with that now. But then in the 80s, you could. Okay. Miss Jean Fairfax is another incredible woman. As I said, sister to Betty. Neither Miss Jean or Miss Betty ever had any children of their own. But I was very proud because Miss Jean referred to me as her daughter. She referred to my friend, my colleague at ASU, Charles St. Clair, some of you may have heard of. She referred to him as her son. And she nurtured us and she made sure that whatever we were doing, we were on the right path. And believe me, you didn't want to mess up with Miss Jean. In fact, Miss Jean was responsible for me starting my human trafficking internship. So shortly after Boko Haram had kidnapped the girls in Nigeria, I'm on my way to Chicago to visit my son, and Miss Jean calls me. She said, now listen. I was like, oh Lord. What are you people at ASU doing about this human trafficking? I really had something to really. I was like, can I call you? I'm getting on a plane. Can I call you when I get home? So I had to get off that plane and figure out what I was going to do, because you don't tell Miss Jean nothing. You better figure it out. I came back and I told her, you know what, Miss Jean, we're starting an internship on human trafficking. And we had a program in social justice and human rights. And so I introduced this idea to them and they supported it. And that was 15 years ago. And for 15 years, I have been taking students, teaching them about human trafficking. Now, when we started, people was like, human trafficking, what is that? No. They were like, well, you know, that's someplace else. No, it's right in your own backyard, okay? Now, you go in the airport, you see signs all over. If you see something, say something. All over the country, you will see references to human trafficking. 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. So she started me on that. I've been taking students to Ghana to work with child trafficking ever since. She mothered me, she pushed me. That's what mothers do. She encouraged me, supported me. She also gave us finances to do what we needed to do. So that was Miss Jean. She was also a mover and shaker behind the desegregation of schools in Prince Edward County, Virginia, and also in a small town in Leakey County, Mississippi, known as Harmony. And that was her and, okay, I can't remember the name, so I'm not gonna try it. As I said, neither Miss Jean or Miss Betty ever had children of their own, but they took the community as their wards. They looked after us. They encouraged and spoke for us when necessary. That's a community mother. There's also many other examples of this community mother activist here in the Valley. There's so many women, but these are the ones that I've interviewed so far. Take, for example, Judge Jean Williams. If you ever met Miss Jean, you would just love her. Very outspoken. She didn't play. She didn't want you to play, although she was fun. Okay? She left her mark. She moved to Phoenix in 1970 from Chicago, where she served as defense attorney for Dick Gregory. Okay. In fact, she would travel with him, and before he would speak to the audience, she would come out and she would give a little lesson around constitutional law, what your rights are, what you can and what you can't do. So when she moved to Phoenix, and she took the bar, And she failed the bar because they said that she failed constitutional law. She wasn't hearing that. So she never gave up a fight. She petitioned the bar, and upon further scrutiny, she was advised there had been a mistake because she had compared her notes to another young white man's notes, and they were the same. So she was like, something's wrong here. Not too long after she was affirmed as passing the bar here, she was working in the public defender's office and was approached about becoming a judge. And I like to quote her here because this gives you some of her personality. In classic response from Judge Jean, she told her friend, I don't know what you've been smoking, but you better stop. If they didn't want a Black woman lawyer, they sure wouldn't want to have a Black woman judge. Sure enough, she took the bench and she was there for 20 years. Speaking up for others, looking out for others, caring for others, speaking for the voiceless. Here's how she did it. Let me see if do I have enough time to do this? It's quick. Come on, next. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, good. All right, cool. I shared this with you because I learned something from every one of these women that I work with. I'll let you hear it.
Holiday, paid holiday. And I called my friend Opal Ellis and another one by the name of Cleo Clay, who's dead now.
Thank you. Okay, let's try this again.
Uh-oh, sorry.
Here we go.
The night that Mecum won
We
the
can do this
election,
much.
he announced that he was going to repeal the order left by Governor Babbitt declaring a Martin Luther King holiday, paid holiday. And I called my friend Opal Ellis and another one by the name of Cleo Clay, who's dead now. But I said to Cleo and Opal, guess what? We have us a thing going on. We have something that will truly unite blacks south of the river, blacks north, east, and west of the river. We will be united over this. And so we began to plan a rally. I said, let's go to a church. So let's do it on a Sunday. Having worked with Dr. King's organization and his committee, I knew that Sundays were slow news days. And you can get television coverage. Got Rem Barnwell, Bishop, he is now Barnwell's approval to utilize his church. We called various organizations, sororities, fraternities, every club we could think of to pass out the word, and then we drew up flyers. And we went from mall to mall and put these flyers under the windshield wipers of every mall that was mostly patronized by African Americans. Sunday morning of the rally, I went to all the black churches north of the river. Opal's sons went all the black churches south of the river and took flyers to the ushers to pass out. I went to Ruby Stewart, who's now deceased, had a radio broadcast, and I went to Elder Larkins and asked them to put the announcements on the radio. In other words, we beat the jungle drum, and television cameras began to arrive, and the place began to fill up. That's how it started. And Arizona's for Martin Luther King holiday was formed. Arizona's my home. I've lived here in Arizona longer than I've lived anywhere else.
Okay, oops. So I just wanted you to hear those words from her because the paradigm, the practice that she used, how she got the word out, it still works. And I always refer to it as when I'm organizing something, I would say, what did Miss Jean do? Because this was how we got our message out. It was the more modern day beating the drums. Well, these days we have even more. We got Instagram, we have all these things now. But going face to face and seeing people and putting flyers and going around, that is also a very effective way of organizing. And so I like to use her. There's so many others in the Valley who have been community mothers, whether they had children of their own. Miss Jean didn't have any children also. So you see the pattern that's coming. She mothered everybody else though. Take, for example, Fatima Halim. Some of you may know her. Miss Halim has biological children. I can attest to, however, the hundreds of other young people and old that she has had an incredible impact on. She moved here from Harlem. She likes to tell you, that's her in the middle. I said, where are you from, Fatima? I'm from Harlem. I was like, okay. So when she tells you that she's from Harlem, you have to read all of that in there. She moved here and her family to Phoenix to answer the call of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad of the Nation of Islam, who said that Muslims should come to Phoenix to build a nation. But when she arrived, she realized that there were no cultural institutions, at least the way she was accustomed to, in which she could involve her children. She started the Rites of Passage program. First for young African American girls, later for Mexican American girls, and even later for young African American boys. These rites of passage have become an institution themselves. It provides thoughtful instruction about how to live your best lives and become leaders of your communities. That is her hue and cry. As if that wasn't enough, she joined with ASU's Gamage to produce a program for Australia Mountain Jail's incarcerated women called Journey Home. In this program, they bring visual arts, performing arts, storytelling, and creative writing to the women. The recidivism rate for women who participate in this program is over 90%. So I would say it's fairly successful. Another prominent community mother activist is Carol Coles Henry. She shared, when I first moved here from Pittsburgh in the 80s, I'll be honest with you, I felt that Phoenix was a very, very unusual place because a lot of what we had dealt with in the East was already resolved, at least that's what we thought. And then you come here and you see things like the Confederate flag flying, or you hear that people aren't organized in the workforce and the kinds of issues that we've experienced. However, Phoenix was very open also in the 1980s to the idea that young people needed to have more opportunities. And she had the opportunity to be very creative and to implement some things that were pretty much unheard of in the Valley. For example, her organization, the South Phoenix Youth Center, created a jazz in Arizona. It had a full-blown band set up in the back of the facility. and people with cellos and trumpets to expose the children of the community to jazz. Another endeavor she undertook was bringing information to young people to deal with their sexuality. This was in the 80s, okay? Making sure that they had education and knowledge about resources to help them deal with those kinds of issues. She fostered cutting-edge ideas that were open to including someone who was not from this community. And the people were very receptive to her, and so this is why she was successful. She had programs at South Mountain High School. She trained young people in etiquette and how to participate in fashion shows, and then brought them in Arizona Opportunities Industrialization Center. She had so many things, and as the granddaughter of sharecroppers from Gretna, Virginia, Miss Henry rose to become the director of the Equal Opportunity Office for the City of Phoenix, with a strong belief in working on equitable treatment for minority youth. And she continues her work even though she is now retired. She is actively engaged in the development of youth and connecting organizations to support one another. Another community mother. Okay. So many women, so many women. I can talk about Colleen Jennings Robenside. Some of you may know who she is. She is the Vice President of Cultural Affairs and the Executive Director of ASU GAMICH. Her first job was to work for the Denver Nuggets, running their youth basketball game while all their basketball stars. Her greatest passion is dance, and that has led her on the road to other things. That passion has informed the activities of ASU's GAMICH Theater for many years. This past Saturday, she presented a show that was Step Africa. If you didn't see it, you really missed it. But she continuously does these kind of programs as well as being engaged in the community. And she has collaborated with Fatima Ali on the Australian Mountain Jail program. I can tell you so many, many more things about her. I could tell you about Robin Colon. I could tell you about Linda Williams, who was our last recipient of the Pioneer Award last year. Linda Williams worked at Fox News for 42 years, okay? She was the news anchor. So I remember when I first came, I was like, this is Fox? And this African-American woman talking and presenting ideas that no one else could or would. She has been a phenomenon, and she's received all kinds of recognition, but we are happy to call her our friend and a community mother. Diana Gregory, let me do Diana very quickly. She's a philanthropist. She specializes in outreach services. Now, what does that mean? It means that she provides fresh fruits and vegetables to senior citizens. And she also helps educate them on what is good for them, what is healthy for them, and how she can encourage them to have better diets. So she retired as vice president of Budweiser. So now she's here as a philanthropist. Okay, I can tell you, again, I already mentioned Linda Williams. Then there's Robin Colon. Robin is on the left-hand side. She's a community and civil rights advocate and philanthropist, worked very, very closely with Jean and Betty Fairfax, but she works with the aged and she also works with community. She is an advocate, she's a lawyer. She's a great person to have as a friend, especially when you need somebody to speak up for you. I want you to check them out. I didn't have time to talk about all of these, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention EMCC's own Linda Cutright. Okay. Linda was actually born in El Mirage, to parents who had moved 2 years earlier from Missouri. Linda envisioned the pathway to a purposeful life, to become a servant to her community through faith, activism, and education. The Dean of Student Services at Australia Mountain Community College, Cutright was a member of the NAACP, Board of Directors of Bethesda Church of God in Christ, and the National Black MBA Association, a licensed minister. She was a graduate of Maricopa Community College's Women's Leadership Group. As a civil rights champion, she leveraged her influence to create opportunities for her students, family, friends, and countless others. Although she passed in 2021, her legacy continues here at EMCC and beyond. She mothered other people's children. And that's my theme. So Linda Cutright and so many other women across Arizona are activists in the tradition of Nanaesi. These women lead and foster leadership that was long ago charted by the ancestral practices of caring for, speaking for, and taking action on behalf of those less privileged and less visible. Their message and mine is take responsibility. Lead and help others become activists for their communities, and then you too can be noted in another century of Black history commemorations. So eloquently personified by the work of Carter G. Woodson, Asala, in our first century of Black history. I leave you all with questions. I know I left a whole lot out. Any questions, anything you want to add? Any of you, I noticed when we asked about who founded certain things, and somebody over here said Linda Cutright, and yes, she did it here. Yes. Yes.
My question was, what would be the most important piece of advice you could give to me and the rest of the Black people sitting in this room right now?
Take responsibility. Okay. It could be very small or it could be very big, but be engaged. Don't be the person that says somebody ought. You're the something. Somebody, yes, ma'am. Oh, who?
So a lot of times when it comes to organizing, we look at people in the community to like fund stuff because we don't have a lot of money. How can we break away from that? Like, how can we make sure we have enough money for the organizations to keep people engaged, have fun?
That's a hard question. You want me to answer that? Well, let me give you just a little quick experience here. I have been at ASU West, now it's West Valley, since 1999. They had a very loose kind of organization before I came, but you see where I came from, so you know I was always busy and into something. And so we formed the Black History Month Coordinating Committee. For 24 years, our programming was funded by the university. There were a couple of times when I wanted to do something extra, so I found more funding, usually through Miss Betty and Miss Jean. Okay. This year, and I shouldn't air my dirty laundry, but you all know what's going on in the education world. You all know that there are certain letters we can't say, there are certain words we don't say. And our funding, it wasn't just cut, it was cut off. Being very resourceful, you don't do anything on your own. There are always others of like mind, find people of like mind, coordinate, collect. There are lots of organizations who are still, organizations, foundations that are willing to give you support. Okay, create a plan. Have a plan and coordinate and communicate with others, and then you can begin to expose your plan. And ask for help. People are there to help. They will help, but they have to know what the problem is. They have to know what you're trying to do. So you need to be creative, you need to be thoughtful, and one person does not go into business alone. There's a Ghanaian proverb that says, one head does not go into council alone. Okay? So you can't do it alone. You can't do it as a singular person. I mean, even people who look like they did it on their own didn't. They always had someone that was helping them, someone who was supporting them, someone who was pushing them, someone who was talking in their ear, someone who you were talking into their ear. So it's collaboration, it's good communication, and have a plan. And other people will help. Yes.
Oh, you can go. I just. I want to say thank you for your message. My question is, how do you inspire and motivate the generations after you to continue oral tradition? Because we are a distracted crowd with so much social media, visual media. Oral tradition seems as if it's fallen to the wayside, depending on who you ask. So what's the best way to continue the traditions that our ancestors have put to us?
I always ask people, what's your story? Because you know a whole lot. What is your story? Tell your story. And that gets people to, they want to talk about themselves. Sometimes you don't want to talk about yourselves. Like, I just finished my annual review. I hate doing that. You know, because you don't want to talk about yourself and what you did. You feel like you're bragging, but there's sometimes you have to. But really, I'm a storyteller. Don't get me in a room with people, because I'm going to have y'all telling me some stories. You know, asking the right questions. And somebody might want to resort to AI, but they eventually got to talk to you. So I get people to tell stories all the time. And we may start out with, here's a joke. You know, you may start out with something very silly, but eventually you can draw out of them by getting them to tell their story. That's my method anyway. And I use AI, but then I double check it.
Yeah.
And triple check it, okay? So. Anybody else? Because y'all know I can talk all day. You have been such a wonderful audience. I thank you all for coming and being so engaged. And I had to go back to my BSU and tell them something wrong with y'all. I mean, I don't know, we got to get this together. We had our opening ceremony. Probably timing was not great, but we had drumming. And so the drumming did kind of draw people, but it wasn't this big of an audience. And so I congratulate you. Job well done. Yes.
I think we have one more question over there.
A little late. We did reintroduce yourself and what you do in your main message.
So
We came in a little late, so we didn't hear you introducing yourself, what you do, like your main message and all that.
Introduce.
We didn't possibly do it.
Okay, so my name is Equia Dupuenoche, and one of my friends are here, he'll say that, what's your real name? My real name is a name that's on my passport. That's it. Okay. I was born and raised in Pontiac, Michigan. Okay. I did my undergraduate work at Michigan State University. I did a master's. I did a double master's at Federal City College. It's now University of District of Columbia. My area was audiology and speech science. I worked at the Georgetown University Hospital with cerebral palsy children, and that's when I realized I can't do this. I can't do this. So I went into linguistics, which was my first love in the first place. So I'm a storyteller. I got my doctor's and master's degree, another one from City University of New York Graduate School. That was in New York. I've been around. I've really been around. I do study abroad programs at ASU, and mostly I have taken students to Ghana to work in human trafficking internship. I've also taken them to Greece and to Rome to work with refugees seeking asylum. And I also teach a course on Black Amsterdam. People go, what? Black Amsterdam. Most of us forget the Dutch involvement in slavery. Okay? And so as a reminder, I talk about how Amsterdam personifies the work of the many years of the Dutch West Indies and the Dutch East Indies trading companies, and that the first slave port that was built in Africa was built by the Dutch in Ghana. It's called Elmina. Okay. They also were involved especially in South Africa. They're involved in Suriname, so many Caribbean and countries that they brag that they never had slaves in their country, but they took them everywhere else. So then I teach a class on Black Amsterdam. The good stuff too, there's all kinds of fashion and art. Did you know that Rembrandt has a whole series on his neighbors, and they were Black? So it's a whole series that you can see on just Rembrandt. So there's really some wonderful things to share about the involvement of African Americans. I was there last, it was Mother's Day last year. And so they took us to a dinner in celebration of mothers, and it was all Ghanaian. So they were speaking Sri, and I'm sitting there like, so I love to expose people to our history and our culture, and to understand how pervasive it is and how engaged we have been throughout the world, throughout history. And that Black Amsterdam course is one of the ways of doing that. But I think that travel is one of your greatest experiences. You learn so much by engaging with other people from other cultures, from other ways of life, from other religions, from other. Expose yourself. That's how you become a global citizen. This is how you begin to understand what the world is like. If you just are, I have friends who have never left Brooklyn. To me, that's so weird, really. But I encourage people to travel. I encourage people to study, to learn, to read, to write, to engage and talk with other people. That is how you expand your world. And so that has been one of the things that I have done over the years. I think global education is very, very important, and then bringing it back home, and then broadening your own perspective of what life is, what life can be, what life has been. For example, I have a lot of kids. I didn't birth but one. I have a lot of children who refer to me as mom. Okay. And one was a girl from Rwanda who came to, that's where you're from?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, Francoise came, she lived with me for about a year. She finished her master's degree at ASU West. And she moved to Colorado with her boyfriend, who actually was the catalyst for her coming to the States. They got married, they had a little girl, they bought a house, they got divorced, she got the house. She sold the house, and she said, Mom, I'm going back to Kenya, because I can live better in Kenya. Like, okay. Well, I'm gonna see. So she's been there for 1.5 years. So I said, I'm going to see, I'm gonna check on her. I spent 2 weeks in Kenya. I have never been so wined and dined in my life. The girl got this beautiful townhouse. She got a live-in maid. And I was like, my son was with me, right? I was like, son, I want this. And he said, not the States, Mom. So I'm looking for some place to go. I'll have suggestions. But travel and exposure, that kind of exposure, you can't get just staying in your own spot. So as an educator, I like to include study abroad. I like to include travel so that people can have a broader understanding of what life can be and what life is and where your place is and where you can engage. That's me. Yes.
What were some of your personal favorite places to travel?
Oh God, that is so hard. I mean, well, I guess I'm supposed to say Ghana first. I went to Ghana for the first time in 1971. And I generally go there at least once a year, sometimes more often than that. That's where my research is. I fell in love with Morocco. Okay. Any place in Italy. I love Italy. I guess it's the food, huh? Geez, I really enjoy Kenya. I would go back, it's just that it's such a long distance and I have family and I have a hard time thinking about being too far away from them for too long. So, but it's really hard. I like Barbados. I love Panama. Let's see. You name it, I probably love it. Exactly. My goal when I retire, just so you know, in case you want to contribute to the fund, I love tennis. So I want to go to the Australian Open, I want to go to the French Open, I want to go to the Wimbledon, and I want to go to the US Open. That's one of my goals. So my son keeps saying, Mom, what is wrong with you? Why don't you retire? And I was like, I'm having too much fun. What's wrong with that? But I love teaching. I love engaging with people. I love just the experience. There's a lot of things that I know that if I were not working, if I were just home, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be exposed to. Now, some of them I don't want to be, but there are so many things, just like all of my friends call me, how you do so-and-so? I was like, don't you have some young people you can ask? But I mean, I love to talk. I love the story. Oh yeah, I like Cameroon. I've been to Cameroon, I've been to South Africa, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to Ghana, I've been to Senegal, I've been to Morocco, I've been to Egypt, I've been to Kenya, I've been to someplace else, a couple other places. But as you can see, I like to go. And I like to take people with me. So the next trip, y'all can come go with me. Okay.
All right, do we have any other questions? All right, I want to definitely give Dr. Anoche just a compliment on your storytelling and how you highlighted these women, these community mothers. Thank you very, very much on behalf of the college and the Black History Committee here at Estrella Mountain Community College. Thank you. Give it up for Dr. Anoche.